I love me a good action film, Nath.
Same.
Yeah, it's why I did a video essay on John Carpenter's classic They Live, and it's why we recently did a Cinema Biosis episode about The Protector, one of the greatest 80s action films of all time. But I feel like action films have changed recently, and I just can't put my finger on why.
Do you want to talk trash about trash?
I think you know the answer, mate. I don't want to put words into your mouth, Nathan, but I feel like we're on the same page when we think of action films. There's usually two things we think about. Your big kind of like Arnie, Sylvester Stallone style action films like what? Commando, maybe Rambo 3.
Yeah, and Rambo First Blood Part 2.
Yeah.
That's got a lot of explosions. America takes on Vietnam again. Wasn't that how you described it? This time they win.
Yeah, Vietnam War 2, but this time America wins. It's like they couldn't just let that one lie. And I guess the other thing that comes to mind is maybe, the late 80s, early 90s straight-to-video kind of action films. Things like your Don the Dragon Wilsons, or let's say Mission of Justice, which is a great film.
Brilliant.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Stuff with actual stunts and stunt work.
Yeah, the stuff where there's like physicality to the fighting. Because most of the people who were starring, especially in the straight-to-video stuff, they were martial artists first and actors or actresses second. So, it was focused on that physicality because it wasn't focused on, let's say, the dramatic qualities of the script. Yeah, sorry, Don the Dragon Wilson.
Earth 2025.
The order was a white female, mid-20s.
Human body parts are the hottest commodity.
It was a slaughter.
And lethal games the cheapest thrill. International box office sensation, Don the Dragon Wilson. Future Kick.
I'm just looking at some of the action movies I got here now, but there were some really great things out back in the day, and a lot of Steven Seagal had a lot of really cool old action movies, but his newer stuff, no.
Yeah, his newer stuff, he'll be a sniper just so he can sit in a chair and not have to get up the entire film. But his older stuff was really gritty. His really early films had that kind of gritty quality and that physicality of real fight scenes with choreography and actual martial arts skills. But it's really weird because for people who don't know listening to this, I do a bit of a side hustle where I do teach some classes on genre studies. And when I talk to the students in that, most of them, when they think of action, they think of something very different. What do you suppose they think of these days, Nathan?
Comic book movies?
Yeah, comic book movies are kind of what they think of when they think of an action film. And I guess in mainstream kind of Hollywood, that is an action film now, I guess.
Never!
Yeah, well, there's still stunts and stuff in there, but there's just so much. It's kind of an afterthought, the action, if it makes sense. There's a bigger story around it.
Yeah, it's like the action scenes are there, and they are choreographed meticulously, but it's something about the actual physicality of the fights don't work for me. I mean, there's really good stunt work going on in the background and some really good...
Oh, yeah, not taking anything away from the stuntmen.
But there's something about it that always just feels weightless, almost like it doesn't have any real kind of kick or punch behind it. And I don't know if that's because, in a comic book movie, you're kind of oh, well, these people probably can't actually be hurt because, they've got superpowers or whatever. Or if it's because they layer so much CG on the action. I didn't even know in Civil War that half the scenes with Black Panther was an actual stunt person. I actually thought it was just a CG model because it looked so CG'd to me, but that's because they CG the outfits.
Yeah, and when they're running along the Winter Soldier and that running along the road, they were running along like a moving mat at high speed and stuff, and there were some really cool stunt work in there. But when you look at it, you just go, oh, it's probably all CG.
Yeah, it's really strange, and I wonder if it's because it lacks that visceral quality of, say, and let's use The Protector as an example because we just did a Sin Bio on it. some of those hits and some of those stunt falls, they're just so physical. You get that reaction where you can't help but almost like let out a cry because you're like, that person was actually hurt.
Yeah, the guy falls and he lands on a shipping container from the top of another one, and like there's no mat, no nothing. You see him come down and hit, bang, just like that would hurt.
And I'm not saying like you have to hurt yourself to make an action scene work, but there's just something so physical about it that it's undeniably like a person interacting with a real space or another person. Because I mean, like, obviously those fight scenes are fake, but they're really selling it because you know it's them there.
Yeah.
And they've done this like a million times. They've tried to perfect this fight as much as they can. I don't know, it's just something that seems to be lacking for me in a lot of modern action.
I was thinking about it before, and the actual funny thing is, like, Christopher Nolan is a good example because you watch Batman and stuff, and the actual fight scenes in it are a bit, I don't know, he's kind of standing there punching.
Yeah, standing there flailing around.
What the hell was that?
Like, obviously everyone involved in the fight knows what they're doing, but it's just hard to make sense of anything.
There's too many cuts in the scenes. It's not a set, lockdown sort of shot where you see some really good hits and stuff.
Yeah, I guess that comes down to shooting schedule and not getting sufficient coverage with the footage, which is probably why you don't see too many low-budget action films. Like, you see heaps of low-budget horror because you can shoot in a few locations and have someone chase someone with a knife. That's pretty simple when you're trying to schedule things, but action, especially when it involves martial arts, that's a very specific skill set you need to organize things, to set things up. Like, if we wanted to shoot an action film, I wouldn't even know where to start with the fight scenes.
Yeah, no, we'd have to, like, I know what I want my scene to look like. I'd know what I'd expect from it. I'd have no idea how to shoot it, what person I could use to do those skills or the flip kick and all that sort of thing. Like, wouldn't know where to start.
The skills don't always translate as well. Like, I mean, I did martial arts for like 8-9 years. Like, I was okay. But, I mean, I couldn't tell you how to choreograph a fight scene for, like, film.
You don't know how to make it look good on a screen.
No, exactly. So, I mean, maybe that's why really low-budget films often shy away from any kind of complex fight scenes. I mean, Len Kabasinski, who I did a video essay on a while back, has some pretty good fight scenes in his films, especially his more recent fare. But he's an award-winning martial artist, so he kind of knows what needs to be done, and he has a general idea on how long it will take, because he's been putting martial arts in his films since, day one. But he's also shooting films to his budget and timeline. He's not trying to make another John Wick, which is a pretty good modern, bigger budget action film.
Yeah, they're brilliant. They've got some great stunts in them, but then, yet again, they're made and directed by a stunt coordinator and a guy who does martial arts. So he knows what he wants and how it's going to look on screen.
Yeah, and while I do appreciate, what John Wick's doing for action in regards to mainstream consumption, like, it's probably the biggest Hollywood franchise that has a focus on that style of action.
Yeah.
That kind of gritty, weighted action. But at the same time, like, there's something just so charming about the low-budget stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I just think there's something about a small budget that sometimes forces people to be, really creative. You've only got to compare, say, like the first Universal Soldier movie. The first Universal Soldier movie. It's a big budget kind of action extravaganza.
Well, it's Van Damme and Lundgren.
Yeah, and I mean, the two recent Universal Soldier films, which were made for pretty cheap, they're pretty creative. Have you seen them? I mean, I know you probably have because you're such a big fan of the franchise, especially the one with Goldberg.
That's your partner, and he's been terminated. And we got all the time we need to play.
I haven't seen them.
Well, they're pretty creative in the way they handle action because they just don't have the budget to do these like big, massive set pieces. So they make the most out of the small environments most of the fights take place in. And it's really brutal. Also, the movie is just kind of way more interesting than the original Universal Soldier because The last one, Universal Soldier: Day of Reckoning, yeah, it's almost like psychedelic in parts.
really?
It's crazy.
No longer slave from this moment on. From this moment on, you will seek vengeance on your oppressors.
Like, obviously, action films are alive and well overseas. I mean, there's heaps of great foreign action films, things like The Raid or even The Night Comes for Us, which I think has some amazingly kind of gritty, brutal choreographed action. But if Hollywood wants to jump back on the bandwagon of making these kind of gritty, down-to-earth action films, I think the path ahead is actually pretty clear.
Tell me. I'm gonna take this right foot, and I'm gonna whop you on that side of your face.
Get in someone who kind of knows what to do, you know? Someone who has the experience.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, get in the writer of maybe one of the greatest action films of all time. And it's not martial arts per se, but I know he has an interest in martial arts. So get someone like Stephen E. D'Souza, who wrote Die Hard, to write a movie, and maybe I don't know, maybe he could direct it as well. You could get a property that's associated with fighting. I don't know, maybe like a fighting video game or something. Star some big name martial artists like Jean-Claude Van Damme in it.
You're talking about Street Fighter.
Oh,
It's been done, man.
Well,
And it wasn't great.
well, I guess
Actually, no, it was.
I guess a perfect action film already exists then, I guess. For our departing listeners who are very much closing this video after hearing that atrocity come out of my mouth, just so you know, I was very young when Street Fighter came out, and after I finished watching it for the first time on VHS, I literally ran over, rewound it, and played it again from the beginning, and my dad, who was in the room with me, just went, "Yeah, I'm done." He just got up and left. Because he was like, there's no way I can sit through this again.
Yeah, no, I can't blame him. See, that's when parenting's hard.